I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Board of Leavenworth County Commissioners. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start with a moment of silence and I'd like to ask everyone to still remember the Helen Swartz family as the passing of her. Roll call, I'll start with Commissioner Stevens. Here. Commissioner SCHIMKE.
Here.
And Commissioner Smith is present. Commissioner KAAZ.
Here.
And Commissioner Culbertson.
Here.
Commissioners are all present. I'd like to open up the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Dean Moberg. I'm with the Fire District, Leavenworth County. The only thing I wanted to come here today for was to apologize for my lack of communication with this board here. I do have a copy of our budget for next year. We had 62 requests from our captains to put in the budget here. Our board spent 3.5 hours going line by line and came up with a good budget here. We're actually at or below our mill from last year, but I just wanted to bring a copy for your information. Also, if I can get a good contact email, I'd be happy to send out information from time to time when it comes out. We send to the townships in the city of Lansing frequently, but I feel like I have been remiss in not keeping this board up to date on what's happening with your fire district, Leavenworth County Fire District 1. So I just wanted to leave you a copy of the budget. Any questions you all have of me as chairman of the board, please contact me at any time. Again, I would like to get you on our email list and send all information out at the same time. Our meetings are videoed like yours, so they can be observed at any time. But by all means, anytime you have a question, feel free to contact me. So I'd like to leave these with you all.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Commissioners have any questions?
Okay, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
well, thank you for coming. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My name is Tim Nye. I'd like to follow up with a conversation we had last week regarding roads in Leavenworth County, specifically 158 and Metropolitan. I had some more. I was privy to some more information after I saw you last week, so I wanted to share that with you. Like I said before, I teach driver education, so I understand about collisions and about factors that go into it. The collision that happened a week ago last Monday, been the 5th of August. Usually there's more than one, almost always there's more than one reason for the collision. And in this case, this wasn't any different. I believe I wasn't able to get a hold of the sheriff's department, would not share information with me due to their ongoing investigation, so they won't share any information with me. I can just talk. There's only one thing I can say for certain that I know about. It happened at night. It happened when it was dark, because I was woke and it was still dark out. But the main reason, someone asked me last week about speed, and it was speed a factor. I wasn't awake. I didn't hear the actual situation happen, but I have a suspicion that speed was probably a factor. I got information after our talk last week. One of the workers said that they believe the gentleman that was driving lost his life, was late for work, and he was trying to get to his job site because he was behind schedule. So I have a strong suspicion that the speed was a factor. I drove that particular roadway this morning at 40 miles an hour. It's not that it's not possible, it's just very unlikely, in my opinion, that that vehicle would have been able to end up the way it did at 40 miles an hour on that road. It just almost, and like I said, that's just my opinion. But speed was a huge factor, I think, in that situation. Another factor, like I said, at night, load shifting. That particular vehicle had a load of diesel fuel on it. I didn't know that at the time. Had diesel fuel, and if you know about trucks with fluid in their loads, they tend to, the center of gravity shifts a lot when they're moving it, especially at a high speed. And I have a feeling that what happened there was that the load sloshed around a lot because it had diesel fuel in it. He was on his way to gas up the vehicles that they were going to use that day. Another situation was a new route. I wondered if the driver had ever driven that particular road. He came from Kansas, Missouri. He lives in Oak, or did live in Oak Grove, Missouri, and he came from Kansas, Missouri, so I have a strong suspicion that maybe that road wasn't a road that he was familiar with. And the last one, I don't have any proof of this either, but I really wonder if the cell phone might have been a factor too. I don't know about that, but cell phones, I know in at least 2 or 3 of the situations I can recall off the top of my head, cell phones were a factor in cars being overturned in that particular area. And the last thing I wanted to say was you tossed out the idea of maybe a reduction in speed, and I think that's one way to do it to help that situation. My particular opinion, though, in that particular place is a roundabout at 158 in Metropolitan would answer that speed. It wouldn't require any kind of enforcement. There wouldn't be anybody have to sit at the fire department and watch, fire station and watch, because like I said, once you went a roundabout, the beauty of a roundabout is it puts something in place and it forces people to slow down. They have no choice. When you drive through a roundabout, you have to slow down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nye. I'm sure things that you were concerned about, I'm sure it's an ongoing investigation. I'm sure we'll get answers when the investigation is completed. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move along to administrative business. Mr. Loughery?
I do have a couple of items today. One, just remind everybody next week is the budget hearing. And 2, we are in the process of doing open enrollment in the county. All eligible staff and elected officials need to take an opportunity to sit through the open enrollment process. Even if you don't utilize the insurance, you still have to sign off on something saying you're waiving it, and that does include county commissioners. So I just want to remind you all that over the next few days, if you could take an opportunity to go downstairs and sit through the open enrollment process.
I did it yesterday afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any update on KDOT, getting together with KDOT, small group?
For the outer loop, yeah, you passed on your email that you had received. I have emailed their staff a couple of times. They said they probably had dropped the ball on getting back with the right person, and then I haven't heard back from them since then. Okay. So they were trying to coordinate with their consultant, so the KDOT staff and consultant can come up with a time. I gave them a few times for our work sessions that were available. They were going to get back to me. So the ball's in their court, so to speak, and it has been for several months.
Right. So. All right, thank you, Mark.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Mark, on the Port Authority bylaw rewrite, have you heard anything from the city?
The city did reach out to Mr. Van Paris, said that they didn't have a lot of concerns with any of the language that was in the proposed agreement. They just wanted to make sure how the transition was going to take place. And I suggested maybe we use the same approach that we used when we did the Planning and Zoning Commission changeover, where there's a date certain that the existing board sign dies, I guess, and then the new board would take office. Mr. Van Paris was going to just memorialize that into a memo, send it over to Mr. Kramer so that they would have that, and then hopefully they would, I guess, put it on their agenda to approve. Do you have anything to add to that?
That's an accurate statement.
Any other questions or administrative business? And we'll move on to the consent agenda. Has commissioners had a chance to look at everything on the consent agenda? Any questions, concerns? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? None? Voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. There's something
The
in
counselor said I didn't need to.
Okay, okay. All right. We're good. All right. Just want to make sure. All right, that motion carried. We ready for the Sheriff's Department? Maybe Shirley?
Morning, members of the board.
Morning.
Hey, Jim.
Here this morning to present the annual Edward Byrne JAG grant. We are co-grantees with Leavenworth PD in regards to this grant. The sum this year that we stand to receive would be $10,000. Typically utilize these funds for the purpose of technology-based systems within the sheriff's office. Recent projects have been body cams, a SecurMax system for the securing of digital evidence, and the outside element of that was the purchase of tactical vests several years ago.
So you're looking for a motion to authorize the chairman to sign?
Yes, sir.
All right. Does the commissioners have any questions? The Sheriff's Department? Wouldn't think so. So I'll entertain a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the grant.
Motion,
Go ahead.
motion to authorize the chairman to sign the Byrne grant for 2019.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the grant? Seeing none, voting?
Aye.
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 Yes, sir. I'll sign it now and get you where to get the money. Which one is on here? Signature thing on here, right there. Just one signature for me?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Have a good one.
Members.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the appointment of a planning commission member.
There's been an opening on the Planning Commission. I think this is an appointment in Jeff's district, Commissioner Culbertson's district.
Yep.
I think we need a motion to appoint Mr. Spink to the Planning Commission.
I can make a motion. I just have one question. Is there an S on the end? For 20 years I've known him, and I don't know if it's Spink or Spinks with an S on the end.
It's just Spink.
No S on the end. Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Jeff Spink as the First District Planning Commission member.
Second.
Have a motion and a second on the appointment of the person to the planning commission. Does anyone have any questions, concerns? Then voting.
Aye.
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 Then he'll be starting tonight, so.
Oh, boy, that was quick.
Does he know that? Okay.
Well, I appreciate people wanting to step up and serve.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
All right, we have an update on the comprehensive plan.
Just one second. No, not at all.
Got it? Thank you.
Ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As a reminder, my name is Ken Boone. I'm with Auctioneer Hare & Hare, the Olson Studio, and we have been tasked with working on and providing to you a master plan update for the county. So we're about a third of the way through the process, and so I wanted to make sure that you got an update as to our progress and then see if you had any questions for us. We're getting ready to run up to one of our big events here at the beginning of October, so as we sort of wind down on this first information gathering and exploratory phase, we're going to start the idea generation, concepts, and vetting of ideas based on the input from your community. So I wanted to run through this, and then we'll certainly fill any questions you might have. So with that, just a reminder about our work. It is a master plan, comprehensive plan update. Your last plan was done in 2008, and we had the pleasure of doing that previous work for you. And our task here is to talk about the future of Leavenworth County and what that means as it relates to growth, sustainability, and then preserving the integrity of your rural areas and parts of your county. And then our other task is to engage as many people as we possibly can to create a consensus-built vision for the master plan. And so that's our task. The topics that we're going to cover are myriad, but they would be found as typical in a comprehensive plan. So land use, zoning, transportation, infrastructure, growth, urban development, economic development, development and redevelopment opportunities, quality of life, parks and recreation, and then health and wellness. So our timeline, as you see, the first phase of the project, which is this discovery and analysis phase for us, we'll be wrapping up here at the end of August, beginning of September, and that will be a whole series of different pieces of the overall master plan update. And I'll get into that detail a little bit later. The next phase really occurs throughout the entire project, which is visioning and engagement with the county and the county residents so that we're clear on the messages we're hearing and that information is input into the final plan. And so what that means at different stages, there's different opportunities for input and engagement. We're rolling into the development phase of the plan, and there's a cornerstone piece to that, which is a community workshop and advisory committee workshop that I'll get into some detail in a little bit. And then after that, we're going to take all of the information that we receive and all of the feedback and the vetting that we've received and develop the plan, the recommendations as we move forward, and then through the beginning of the year, first quarter, work through adoption with you. So there will be multiple opportunities for us to present drafts of the plan, for you to ask questions and engage in what the recommendations have been, what they've been based on, and then how those fit or don't fit with what the final plan document might be.
Ken, a quick question. I don't know if this is the right part of the presentation, and it could be more for our staff than for you, but
You bet.
I had inquired about some additional meeting locations. Primarily our meetings occurred in Easton and occurred in Tonganoxie, and we had at least some discussion with some of the larger cities that they too would waive any fees associated with their community centers, and we could get some additional engagement, attendance, involvement. I don't know exactly where that landed or didn't land.
I have a series of slides about that in a little bit, but we can certainly discuss it now if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if you're going to cover it, then no problem. I just know that that's been kind of an
I want to make sure that I
discussion.
did cover that today. Jeff, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, we did reach out to Ken about that, and there is an additional cost to it, so that's what we are waiting for. If the commission can approve that, then we can definitely go forward.
Well, I think if we plan on hearing from our residents, we probably want to engage them. How that was missed in the original scope, I'm kind of concerned with. I saw some communication about it was fee-related, and then again, once the cities were approached with why would we be charging a fee to use your facilities to get feedback from your residents, that seems to be a little counterproductive. They said, well, no one told us, we'd be happy to waive that fee. So it seems like there was just some miscommunications or missteps along the way. If we need to, I'd hate to take on additional costs to get it done, but I think it's absolutely required. I would just question why it was missed in the initial scope to begin with, so.
So I guess I would say that I don't think it was missed. I think that decision had to be made. There is a limited scope we could do. And so what we tried to do was have locations that were central to the county itself, north and south, instead of them being on the eastern edge of the county within the cities. As our task is to evaluate everything outside the corporate limits of every city in the county, right? So certainly those margins and edges of every one of those cities are important to study and from a growth and infrastructure, et cetera, standpoint. But we wanted it to be clear that the locations of those two things were selected so that we would be encouraging also everybody who doesn't live in a city in the county, because our charge is everything outside of the cities. And so what part of our rationale was that if we hold them in the cities, we're going to get overwhelming amounts of city residents on the input side, and we wanted to make sure we were hearing about the other input from the farmers and the more rural character of major parts of the county. That being said, certainly we can do more meetings. We've conducted 10, 5 in the north, 5 in the south. Their attendance is what their attendance is. It is simply one piece of a much larger strategy for getting input from the rest of everyone in the county. That includes, I think right now we're sitting at 1,500 to 1,600 different surveys, hits on our surveys, completed surveys that have been submitted. We had a really great visioning session that was really well attended from a mix of people throughout the county, cities and county itself. And so I would encourage you not to be stuck on just those focus group pieces, because it's just one piece of a much larger sort of effort to pull people in.
Sure.
You'll also see that during our major workshop event, there is a countywide open house that is going to pull in, is going to take people through, the public, the general public, through the process that we're going through during the entire workshop. So we're going to be soliciting as much information as we can get, and people are interested in giving us from wherever in the county,
right,
to engage us on all of these issues that we're trying to sort of work our way through the maze on. So we're not trying to exclude everybody. What we're trying to do is cover as many bases as we possibly can within a limited budget.
Can I ask a question?
You bet.
You had a meeting up in Easton, correct?
Yes.
Did you not have a meeting in Linwood?
No, we had, the other meeting was in Tonganoxie in the south.
Okay, well, I would encourage you to consider Linwood. That area is a fast-growing part of the county, and I think certainly there's a lot of people down there I know that are very involved in these type of issues and probably like to have their voices heard too.
Well, again, it wasn't just in, we weren't just asking the citizens in those cities. We were trying to locate north and south. We had 10 total scoped focus group that we could have. We decided because of the feedback we'd get about the differences between north and south and growth and rural character and all of those other things, we wanted to have one in the north, we wanted to have one in the south, and that's where they landed to to pick
I
up as
just
many people
encourage
as
you,
we
if we're
can.
going to do a few more, that Lynn would be included.
Certainly can put it in
Ken,
the mix.
I'm not trying to be,
Appreciate that.
I'm not trying to be critical, because it's very difficult what you're trying to do anyway. But if you think about it, if people are trying to plan to get these meetings in and around their work schedule, unless you are a farmer or rancher, you're not out in the county during the day, right? You're at a job somewhere. A job could be one of the cities we're talking about, or it could be,
Sure.
outside of Leavenworth County. So I
Absolutely.
think you just got to think about accessibility, regardless of who you're trying to target specifically for those meetings, so.
I appreciate that.
And Mike, to be fair, the Easton meeting he's talking about wasn't in Easton. It was 4 miles outside of
Yeah.
Easton at Pleasant Ridge School.
Well,
And so the meeting in
and
Tonga
I'll-
is 5 miles from Linwood, so really it's kind of the
Understand.
same distance.
I understand, but
Yeah.
I just think
Yeah, it looks
down in
on
that
paper.
area, it wouldn't have to be
Sure.
in the city of Linwood, you could have it,
I bet
Yeah.
we could use the community center.
or the fire station.
$90,000 to fix it up.
Yeah, we got a nice community center down there. So,
I would-
but I do think that part of the county often feels like they are sort of out there and not heard from.
Sure.
And I think it's important that they be heard.
I would mention, and this is later as well, Monday, we had an entire day here where we invited all of the cities in to have a conversation with us about the issues, the concerns they have, how it relates to that margin around their towns and cities.
This is city staff.
Yes, yeah, this is city staff, anybody they wanted to invite, we just left it open. And we had your staff and myself here to answer any of those questions, to facilitate that dialogue and make sure we understand those issues. Primarily so that as we work through the plan, one, we understand their current corporate boundaries and what they plan to do outside of those boundaries, and how they see growth occurring in their communities, because ultimately we want that reflected in the plan, because we think that as growth occurs naturally and organically throughout the county, we want to record that. If this is a document that looks forward and they had some sort of plan, we wanted to include that. But we also want to talk about economic development and housing and anything else that affects what we're doing in the county as a whole. And so we had great attendance. Linwood called at the last minute and said they weren't able to join us, and Easton wasn't able to join us, although they were scheduled as well, but everyone else did. And I'll go through that in detail, a little bit more detail
You had a
later.
question?
Commissioner McCall, had a question?
Yes, just as long as I was wondering what percentage of the respondents and things, we're talking about rural, responded or attended were from Delaware, Alexandria, or High Prairie townships? Because that's central within the county, heading to the west. And when we talk about people that aren't being, I think that there's a lot of people are being heard from the south. But I'm just saying, are we engaging and reaching out to and making sure we're hearing from Delaware, High Prairie, and Alexandria Township people who are to the west and more in the central part of the county?
I don't have any of those stats, and actually Kristen, who is working with us on the project, may be able to crunch those stats. I don't know if we had it, if we had the survey that much locational base to pick out that data as to specific township.
Okay, I was just curious, when because I know that affects,
Right.
Commissioner Schimke's district.
So-
When we, you say that not the cities, but right outside of the cities, there are townships that are right outside of our cities of Lansing and
Absolutely.
Leavenworth that are,
Absolutely.
we know that we had some north, but it's just a question of
And
engagement.
that township, Alexandria, is one that could also be sort of like Linwood, kind of sometimes gets left out,
Until we get County Road 30 done.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's just, if we're going to have a discussion about,
Right.
who was able to attend or had the opportunity or were advised that this was going to be happening.
Now, there
that-
was one in Vaser.
Well, there's nothing
Yeah.
worse than giving a presentation and everybody just pounding it before you get to the end of it, so maybe
We
we'll.
ought to move on.
It's been enjoyable. I've enjoyed it so far, so thank you.
I did, it's my fault, it's my fault.
Okay.
Sorry, Ken, please
It's a
continue.
conversation, so we can take it anywhere you guys want to take it. I have no issue with that.
As long as it's productive, and I believe that was productive.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, so just a summary of what we've done so far. In the very beginning of the project, one of the things that's important in the way that we message this and try to get out to people is to have a brand for what we're doing so they can start to recognize that. We all see that through social media. We all see that through just simply the way that you brand an effort. And so a lot of this stuff was the creation of those things, the creation of a dedicated website for the project where all of our information can live. All of our updates occur on there as well, so any information we're sharing with the public shows up there, including summaries and concepts and everything else when we get into that. So that's where all of this lives. It's tied into your these social media accounts to get the word out, et cetera. So press releases, et cetera. We have gone through a full public engagement effort up to this point. I talked about the website. I talked briefly about the survey. Survey is linked within the website. I've heard between 1,500 and 1,600 responses at this point as of this week. That closes on September 1. So I would encourage anyone who hasn't had a chance to respond to that to do so. The reason we're ending it on September 1 is because we want to be able to collate it and analyze the data that comes from the survey, so we have it ready for our workshop that occurs on at the very beginning of October. Okay, so we can still open it up later if we want to, but at some point certain we have to close it so we can analyze what we've received. And then if we have to open it later to receive more input, we can do that, and then we'd have to analyze that data separately.
Ken, have those responses been purely organic? I mean, has there been any like marketing spin, like geo-targeting, anything to try to get this out in front of more of the right people? It's purely been organic, just us sharing it around?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. Yes, through all of our channels, through all of your channels in the county, press releases, et cetera, and just trying to get the word out. So it's completely organic in the way that we're not targeting specific groups. But what I would tell you, one of the ways in which we can always increase responses on surveys is for the people that receive the survey, if they're business owners, especially if large companies, manufacturing companies, any of that sort of stuff, forward that stuff to your people because they have a vested interest in this whole thing. And so we can really start to get additional responses if people will forward it to their employees and et cetera, et cetera. And so we're trying to get as much coverage as we can possibly get. But again, it takes those people in the community, sort of connecting and reconnecting to get that word out. And
You
so,
can probably assume that we don't have the greatest traffic to our website or social
yes,
media.
and we're
pages.
not relying simply,
Right.
simply on those. Yeah.
How many, did you say you'd have 1,500 responses?
We've got 1,500, yeah, and I think we're getting very close, or right at 16 or something like that right now. Yeah, so, yeah, very positive.
Target was 5,000.
So as a percentage, how would you view success, Ken? When you think about population versus responses?
That really, honestly, that really depends. I would have Kristen answer that
Okay.
question from a expectation and et cetera. I'm very pleased with 1,500. I'm very pleased with the 60 or 70 that turned out for the visioning exercise that stayed there for 4 hours to give us their detailed input in a very hot room at times. So, I mean, there has been some really great engagement. I was really pleased by the feedback we got at the focus groups. Everybody would like to have higher numbers. So we're going to continue to put the word out, get as much participation in the workshop as we can. The great thing is if people are interested and engaged, and these issues matter to them, they'll start showing up. And that's why this process should take a year to go through, not 3 months or 6 months, and then you say, here's a plan, and it wasn't developed with your community. And so we're trying to take as many possible steps as we can to engage people. But it takes time, and it takes will to be interested in the things we're talking about, because a comp plan can be it's high level and, there's not a lot of shape to it. The gentleman who wants to talk specifically about 158th Street, that's a very real thing to talk about. Comprehensive planning and land use planning is an abstraction at times and is difficult to talk about. So we're trying to engage as many people as we possibly can along the way.
Well, at the risk of not waiting to the end again, I do think as we talk about additional locations, we might want to talk about, I'm surprised there wasn't more of a marketing plan around some very geographic, targeted spending that we could do social media to get this in front of a heck of a lot more people. And I think the responses are what matters most, so it's something we can talk
There
about.
have been social media buys, there have been ad buys, there have been that stuff targeted with a marketing plan to do that. And we're getting the responses that we have so far. So I'd be.
Oh, so there is some of that, because I thought we said it was
Absolutely.
purely
And
organic.
that Kristen from New Boston that's her expertise.
Okay.
Is to bring people into this process. And she's very good at it, and that's why we brought her into the project itself. So, yes, she's working on it, it's very active, et cetera. But if we can find a way to increase that, we'd certainly be open to your comments and your ideas to do that.
Well, I just think, one thing, I know for a fact that 4 of the 5 commissioners have social media or Facebook pages that they utilize. And, we can irritate the heck out of people by continually sharing the link for that survey
Yep.
and encouraging them to share it as well, so.
And the workshop that's upcoming and the open house for the general public during that workshop.
Right.
All of that stuff. So we would absolutely encourage that. We'll work with staff to make sure that those points are hit and we can engage your own social media accounts and et cetera. So
What social media have they bought advertising on?
I don't have the answer for the specifics of that.
And you don't know how much
Uses
they've,
Twitter.
I don't know how much has
Do
been
you?
spent. I don't know. No. Kristen.
could you get that information?
I
to
could,
us?
I could,
Okay.
certainly, and I'd be happy to have Kristen come back and talk in detail about some of that stuff if you'd.
All right. 'cause
Mike's our
that-
social media chair.
Yeah.
Follow it up.
Absolutely, understood. Okay,
You're the man.
we had a visioning workshop at the end of May, and we had about 60 people there. It was a 4-hour session, it was kind of a marathon, and it was intended to be. And basically, they all worked together to create a series of prioritized lists that are about what's needed in the county, what are the things that we want, what are the things that are standing in our way, and the things that we feel like we can control and that we can't. And so actually it was a very engaged session. I thought the input that we got out of it was great. One of the things you see here on the right side of the screen is just one of the word clouds that came out of that. And the question for this word cloud was, what makes you proud of Leavenworth County? And so I'm sure you all know how a word cloud works, but the more times that word is repeated, the bigger and bolder that word gets. And so it levies a level of importance on those abstract ideas. And so you can see here the thing that people are proud of is rural and people and history, community, diversity and agriculture and beauty. So you can start to see at least some relational sort of ideas here. And this happens at the very beginning. And then what happens through the process is you start to see how these things start relating to the outcomes that happen in the workshop. So we are going to revisit some of this stuff at the workshop that's coming up, the charrette, as we call it. And the charrette that's coming up, we have secured a location, so we know where it's going to be. We know what the dates are. It is not at a secured location. We have secured a location. The agenda's set, the exercises are developed, and so we know sort of what we're doing and what we're trying to get out of the process. And we talked about the focus group meetings. These were the topics that were discussed in those focus groups. land use, infrastructure, agriculture, urban growth, and economic development. Here is the participation breakdown. There were 101 people that attended. 54 of those were unique, so people attended multiple sessions, and 27 of those attended multiple sessions, which means that several of them attended 3 or more. So we got good feedback from that group, but again, I will stress to you that that is just one piece of the puzzle here. There are many other engagement pieces here that we're trying to reach out to your communities with. These are the 2 locations that we had them, and then we have compiled a summary of that information and the questions that were asked and the information that came out of that. Monday, I mentioned, we spent all day talking to the municipalities. The Tonganoxie, Basehor, Bonner Springs, Leavenworth, and Lansing all attended. Each one of those sessions was at least an hour long. Linwood and Easton were scheduled to attend, but for whatever reasons, they could not attend that day. We talked about a whole bunch of different things. As a summary of that discussion, I would tell you that your communities are all different, and their approaches to how they're going to handle and look at growth outside of their corporate boundaries are all different, and their perspectives are all different. One of the things that came out of that is this desire to work together to solve some of these issues and to have a common voice. We heard that from most of them. I think Leavenworth was different in that it was going to stay more internally focused on their own issues at this time and didn't necessarily want to entertain those wider issues, and we certainly respect that perspective. So that's what came out of that. We've got a whole bunch of information. I haven't had a chance to summarize that, but we certainly will and put it into the mix in the project. And again, we've asked for them to give us their current boundaries along with any future boundaries or ideas or even land use planning they may have. Most do not have that information, but some have had some thoughts on that, and we want to at least be reflective of that. Again, as we think of growth in a positive way, and we think about how communities grow, that margin that occurs between an existing city limit boundary and growth of their community, that's a really important margin around their cities. And things that happen in that zone can greatly affect a future cities if they have a desire to grow into that area. Those future cities' ability to grow the way they want to grow, to be to the standards that they want them to be connected in the way that they want them to be. Sometimes what can happen in the county is not what can happen in the city, and so you can create obstacles and roadblocks for future growth if that management area isn't at least thought about or talked about. And that's one of the things we were trying to do with those discussions, and we had good discussions with everyone. So we will continue to have those. They will be invited to certainly attend the open houses, so we can get further feedback if they want to give it to us. We've opened the door. We've made clear the lines of communication. We will certainly do that as we can. Okay.
Are you planning to reach out to Easton and Linwood?
We have.
Okay.
And staff has directed back to Easton and Linwood both that I'm available to have that conversation on phone or whatever, since they weren't able to attend the meetings that we had here. So they were scheduled to show up, and for different reasons they could not attend. So okay, yes. Existing conditions. So this first part of us is really, first third of this project is us understanding. So we're just trying to understanding. We're utilizing a lot of mapping, a lot of GIS, and we're trying to understand the physical and market conditions that exist currently in the county. We are working on these first 2 sections of the plan as we go. So the hope is your staff will not get a document that they haven't seen that's that thick at the end of this process. We're going to do this as we go. We're going to submit sections of the plan as we go and hopefully get feedback and sort of wrap those up. So at the end, you're really just focused on the plan, not all of the stuff that's come before. But we do want to be transparent about all that stuff. So we'll be submitting draft sections of 1 and 2. It will be dry, but there's going to be a lot of really good information in there. And that also includes the economic study as well. And so we do have an expert, a market analysis expert that's coming in. He's going to be talking to a lot of people. He's coming in at the end of August. His conversations are different than the conversations we're having, and we like to keep them parallel, but they don't touch until we get to the workshop. So we're trying to have him take an independent look at market and economics from our more land use and people-based sort of approach to what we're doing. And so we'll bring those two together to have a market-grounded approach as we work our way through the project. So he is going to start his individual interviews at the end of August, and then he'll be here for 2 or 3 days to conduct all of those. I don't have his list of people. He's been working on contacts and touches with all kinds of different people in the county, which would include developers, economic development people, banks, et cetera, those who are immersed in the economic development conditions, economic and development conditions in the county. So if you have anybody that you think is a critical person for him to talk to, I hope that you would pass that along to staff so they could give it to us and we could try and set up a meeting, because this is always more is better, and if we can set up something else, we certainly would be interested in doing that. So if anybody comes to mind, oh, have you talked to this person? We'll give it to Eric, see if it's on his list, and if not, he can try and set up a meeting. Okay. Okay. For the charrette or workshop, we have finalized the agenda and its exercises. We know what we're doing. We're in the process of creating all of the mapping and event materials for that, and advertising for the open house, which occurs October 2nd from 5 to 7 at, what's the name of the facility? The Heritage Center. Okay, October 2nd from 5 to 7, general public open house at the Heritage Center. And that will be coming out much more frequently here as we, now that we have those dates and times nailed down. Okay. So I jumped ahead and talked about Eric and what he was doing on the market standpoint. Again, if you have any people specific you want us to talk to, give us that information. We'd be happy to reach out to them and schedule an appointment. Here is the detailed information on the charrette. It's October 1st through 3rd. So what happens in the charrette, and I want you to be comfortable with this event. Like the visioning session, we're going to bring people in and we're really going to have them do some work. And we're going to ask them a lot of questions. And we're going to try to understand as much as we can during the first day. And then in the second and third day, we're going to ask them to vet for us. And this is a really important process for us to go through. And what it allows us to do is compress about 3 months worth of work into 3 days, because we have direct feedback about concepts, ideas, thoughts from the citizen advisory group and then the public. We ask for a lot of input. We ask for them to give it to us in their own words through a series of different exercises, so that we can record the things that they're saying specifically and in detail. And then that stuff all gets put in the hopper. And so we're asking for 8 hours of commitment for those who are attending from the citizen advisory group during that process. It's not 8 hours at one time. We're having them scheduled either in the morning or in the afternoon so we can pick up that going to work or coming back from work, and et cetera. We're going to be here. I'm going to bring my staff here, and we're going to be here for 3 days. And so we're open and we're available, and anybody who wants to come in and talk will have opportunities to do so on their own schedule, right? That's part of the beauty of that process is they don't have to schedule a time. Just come in when it's available for you. I'm going to have 6 or 7 people here, so we'll be able to work with you and talk individually to you throughout those 3 days. And then again, that public open house is a big open house with lots of visuals and lots of questions and opportunities for the general public to give us as much feedback as they decide they want to do. Here's the agenda itself. You'll see these later, but the ones that are highlighted in yellow are the advisory group. These are the times that we're asking them to be there, and the process that we'll go through. So we'll spend the first half of the first day making sure we're clear on the objectives and et cetera. Then we'll actually meet with a technical committee, which is all of the agency's people will come in and sort of give us their take on infrastructure and roads and all of those sort of particular technical issues that we don't want to weigh down everything else in. They're critical, they're important, but there's going to be a lot of technical speak in that meeting, and so we don't want to, sometimes it's a pretty dry meeting for most people to attend. You're certainly welcome to attend that meeting, but it can get a little dry. And then we have what we call closed studio and open studio. Closed studio typically means that my staff is trying to draw furiously concepts and ideas to be able to put up for the next review session. And so that's us trying to get a handle on everything. Everybody's told us, and then give you our options and concepts and thoughts about that input information. I would tell you, even though it says it's closed, we welcome anybody who comes by that wants to talk to us. So it is open for anybody who wants to decide they want to come in and have a conversation about the things that are important to them. We believe in that a lot. Second day is work. We give the Citizen Advisory Committee an open house preview, and then we go to the open house. We've talked quite a bit about that. And then the third day is really continue to work, talk to people, and then we have a final review session at the end of that day. The hope is that this whole thing works as a funnel, is the idea here. And it has been tremendously successful for us in the idea that if we can get enough people in the room and we can generate enough ideas based on their feedback, and we can generate enough concepts and thoughts that they can then react to those in real time. And we can prioritize and weigh and value each one of those. And I'll tell you right now, some of that stuff is going to be terrible. Some of it is going to be so that we understand whether this issue should move forward or not. We're trying to understand through this process the good ideas and the bad ideas. And for us, generation of ideas is a big thing, right? And so we're going to want people to tell us, that's a bad idea, we don't like that. We'll take that idea, we'll rip it off the wall, and we'll move forward with the good ones. That's the funnel, okay? So hopefully at the end, the comments that people have made, the thoughts that they've indicated are important for them, and we've generated ideas about those and how we might include them in a recommendation, that those keep falling through the funnel. And at the end of the day, we have created a consensus-built plan because the group, not us, the group has moved those good ideas forward and they've left behind the ones that don't fit. And that's the idea. The whole process is meant to develop supporters and champions of those final ideas that come out. This is your plan. This is not my plan or my staff's plan or my company's plan. This is your plan, and hopefully we can generate some real champions of what comes out of this so that they can help you move the plan forward. and that you can build on the good ideas in the plan and move that whole thing forward. And that's the process, and that's why we go through what we do.
Ken, quick question. Do you
Yeah.
guys pull in plans from other communities? I mean, again, over time, here's, I guess, one of my questions is, a lot of times people, we only know what we know, right? So we may not have every great idea, but someone somewhere has probably had one that, you know, may make a lot of sense given our size, demographic, location, all those kind of
You
things.
bet.
Again, we want to hear from as many people as possible. That's what we're already arguing about. At the same time, I think you employ resources and companies like yourself to educate us and help bring
Exactly
ideas as
right.
well. So it's not just what we can conceptually come up with.
That's
It's,
exactly
here's
right.
maybe some things you haven't thought of
Right.
that other communities have and have been very successful with.
And so you will see as many of those on the walls as you see direct responses to the information you've given us.
Okay.
Our job here is to be the technical resource for you and use all of our background, experience, et cetera, in working with other communities and understand how those things might apply here. And so you'll see an awful lot of that stuff as well. And I trust the creativity and the knowledge of the staff that I'm going to bring to you to generate good forward-looking ideas that some of them will challenge perception about this or that idea or thought or where you might be right now. And then it's up to the community to decide and you guys to decide, should we move that idea forward or should we, put it to the side? So I absolutely appreciate that. That is absolutely our role in this process, is to bring that technical side of understanding how this is being done across the country.
You were talking about the attendance and, 54 unique individuals is a pretty small number.
It is.
Although they can be very loud voices.
Absolutely.
It's a very big place.
Yep.
So I just
So,
keep
I want to hear
going.
about the successes, I want to hear about the failures.
So, to address that specific issue, the structure of our events, there will never be a formal presentation and Q&A, okay? That is structured specifically so that everybody gets to have an equal voice in the responses and everything that comes back to us. And so it's about individual conversations, it's about group conversations, all of those sort of things, and not soapboxing for an individual's one and only, interest. And so we very consciously have developed this process so we can get the most out of it and the most value for ultimately you guys in hiring us to do this without, just meetings devolving into, this, that, and the other we've all seen, and have pushed, quite honestly, a lot of people away from these kind of meetings. And so we're trying to do it in a different way to engage people into a better process. That is also why those who don't want to attend can get full materials online on the website, and they can participate, they can take surveys, they can review all the information. We have the ability for them to comment on that information on the website as well as that stuff is uploaded. So we can take that, I don't want to attend, I can't attend, I've got soccer, football, whatever. We make provisions for that as well. And that digital presence of not having to go to a meeting sometimes is really, really important. And now we have to do it everywhere because it's a real thing.
So I have a question.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that we talked about when this process first started was making sure that, we don't have a preponderance of people that are attending the focus groups that are employees of cities or city planners or city managers so in your focus groups, have you defined, of those 54 people, do we know how many of those actually work for the city or how many of them are just like ordinary citizens that are not connected to government?
We do. I don't have those numbers for you now, but we do have that information. We had full sign-up sheets for all of those people. And I don't know, you attended some of them just as a resource for us as well.
I think that would be interesting information for us to, when we're
I can ask Chris
considering this.
to have that.
Yeah, if you got
information.
addresses, you have the township information you asked earlier.
Yep.
So.
I attended all those meetings, and the majority of the people who attended, they were regular citizens. They weren't attached to any organization.
Okay. So when we get through 1 and 2, this first third of the project, these are the other sections of the draft plan as it will come out. And so as we develop the recommendations and the mapping and the visuals for each one of these, staff will get these for review and redline, et cetera. We will submit, there we go. We will submit the sections 3 through 7, which is all the way through the major contents of the plan. Right at the beginning of December. We're not going to give you the burden that occurs with everybody trying and not trying to get stuff done in December and how all of that works. So we're going to get that to you at the beginning of December, so you can work your way through that, knowing that we will take those revisions during the first quarter, have the meetings we need to have with you to have the discussions and work that we need to do on it. We will include Section 8. The reason I mention that, Section 8 is implementation, and it's absolutely key. It's a key part of any plan. And so we want to get through recommendations and all of the discussions that need to happen there, and then base what we're going to have for implementation on those final results. And so that's why we split those pieces apart. And so you'll see that will happen at the end of the first quarter as we work our way through final plan and adoption. It's a lot of information, so I'd be happy to entertain any additional questions. We're very excited about the work that's going on. We're making a pretty great effort to make sure we're including as many as we can. We certainly are open to increasing that how you would like to do so. So we can certainly work with you on additional things you'd like to see.
Do we have a cost number for additional meetings?
The number that I was given was between 8 and 10.
Dollars?
We can work through that. Honestly, the cost of holding a meeting is not in the facility, although I appreciate you reaching out and getting those facilities numbers for free. It really is in just the labor that occurs with all of that, and then the analysis of the data. So we certainly can tighten up the number. If we can work on what you see as critical for additional, then we can get you a very firm number or a final number on what we think that effort would be. But I think some discussion may need to occur with you on what you would like to see from an additional standpoint.
Question, Mark?
One of the reasons why I asked to have this presentation today was because I knew that had come up, that there was concern about the number of presentations, where they were held, and that I know there's an additional cost, and the only way we can move forward with that is that this Board of County Commissioners decide how many additional meetings you want, and specifically the locations, so that Ken and his group will know exactly where they need to go. They came up with the 8,000 to 10,000 per, right? That's
I
per
think that
area.
was for,
No, it was a proposal, had a couple of
yeah,
sites
it
and
was
maybe
for
a couple
two.
meetings.
Yeah, it was for a couple of meetings, yeah.
Okay, so that's one of the things that I think that the board does need to discuss today.
Mark, remind me of what the total amount of the contract we have with them right now is?
288,000.
Yes.
And that's not enough to cover a few more meetings?
Well, I think based on all of the stuff that we're trying to get done, we could not do some things to have those additional meetings, but honestly, staffing up the workshop and the charrettes and the level that we think we need to, and doing all of the work, which includes roads, infrastructure, utility stuff, plus all of the planning work, I mean, that's a pretty good number for where we're going to be at. So can we look internally to shave some here or do something here? We certainly can. But I would tell you there's probably going to be some additional, simply because we don't want to compromise the final work product. But if you tell me, well, I don't think this is important, or we probably don't need to do this to this level, we can certainly do that and modify that, and modify the scope to find the dollars. But I would tell you that we need the input on how much and what in order to sort of dive in to find out what we would modify.
That's probably something, Mark, and you need to come back with a proposal for us, probably.
Probably needs to be
Or
done
or you want to
quickly
do it
then.
now?
I just have one, I mean, it's something when you put it off, then you've pushed too far into the cutoff and the deadline of getting the analysis done of the work product. But it's just a suggestion, for getting the word out for the surveys or the events. Have you made contact with all of the banks and things that have their, the electronic scroller?
The reader boards,
the
I'm
reader
sure that
boards?
we haven't done that.
So
that
it's
boots on the
just a
ground
way-
level for banks, no.
Especially in our more rural or less populated areas, they all have banks, and most of their banks have the electronic signs that scroll, and they can tell you, this is going to happen on this date, or take the survey, just things that generate interest. That was just a suggestion.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Eastern Bank have a board? They do?
It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, that's true, but.
And they
I
usually
think-
don't charge you
I think
anything.
Linwood's gonna be the issue. I don't think there's a bank. Huh? Yeah, but they're that message board.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But you can put up those, you can even put up little block things on
Right.
signs.
So we have sent it to them, the information to them, whether they put it on their scrollers and their readers. That's up to
Maybe
them
we
if they
can
do,
reach out.
but we can certainly reengage that if we need to.
It was I know Lansing Community Center was one of the proposed locations. Jeff, do you remember what the other one was?
I think it needs for the additional.
All right, Crystal, lay it on us.
So, for the additional focus groups, we had looked at a couple of places. We did look at the Lansing Community Center. We looked at the Riverfront Community Center. As Mr. Boone stated earlier, sorry, try to talk loud. As Mr. Boone had stated earlier, we had tried to concentrate them more in the rural part of the counties for the focus groups, to try to get those folks to give us their input. And we did have really good input, I thought, during those. For the charrettes, we also had, looked at the Baser Library, which is where we held the initial visioning event. For the charrettes, we had looked into the Lansing Community Center, the Riverfront Community Center. We did look at the Tonganoxie VFW and the Tonganoxie Fairgrounds. The Lansing Community Center, that would not work because they have a standing engagement on the Wednesday, so then we were going to have to find two places. They would have to come in the first day, do their thing, tear it down, go somewhere else the next day, do their thing, tear it down, and then come back to the Lansing Community Center. So unfortunately, that just wouldn't work. The Riverfront Community Center, they wouldn't let us use the gym, and we need lots and lots of wall space. And I don't know if you're familiar with the rooms upstairs, but they all have those old pictures on them, and it's the wood and such. So we didn't have the wall space we were going to need. So unfortunately, that wasn't an option. We did want to try to concentrate the charrette in the northern, up in Leavenworth/Lansing area, because that is certainly the population center. And we felt like having the visioning center, the visioning meeting down in Baser, we had given the more southern portion of the county an opportunity to have something there, that was kind of centrally located. We also had looked at a couple of different churches, but again, for different scheduling reasons and such, it just didn't work out.
So you're talking about there were some requirements specific to the charrette being over 3 days
Right,
that
yeah.
excluded those other locations.
Yeah.
So my thought is if we're having the charrette in Leavenworth and we've had these workshops or sessions in Easton and Tonganoxie, that maybe Lansing and Baser would be obvious places to have one-day workshops very similar to what was offered in Easton and Tonganoxie that usually has, 2 or 3 sessions throughout the day, but, so that, people have some flexibility around work schedules and everything else, so.
Yeah, there are places there if the board directs us to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like whether it's the community center or the library, we're only asking for one day.
Yeah,
shouldn't be an
for
issue.
the focus groups.
Right.
This time around. The last time around, we did try to concentrate those over a couple of days. So we needed, again, those spaces for multiple days in a row. And both the Pleasant Ridge Elementary School and the VFW were very accommodating for that and
Would
free.
that be the consensus of the board, that 2 additional meetings, Lansing and Basel?
Would it be 2 additional meetings or 2 additional days of meetings?
Like 2 meetings or a day?
Just
2 or
want,
3 meetings.
or just want like Lansing to have a round of
Right.
focus groups like we did, that was, so there would be like, I think there were 3 a day?
Yeah, so it's actually, so each of those topics, there are 5 topics, and each of the topics was given twice, once in the north and once in the south. So when we just need clarification about when we say meetings, do we mean all 5 of them? Because that's 5 meetings to get through one round of the focus groups. So we did do those typically about 3 a day. We did them at 12, 4, noon, 4, and 7, I believe, were the.
Well, that would be my recommendation. I think we'd want to offer the similar solution in those areas that we did in Tonganoxie and Easton.
Okay, so that would be 10 additional meetings.
On 2 different days.
On-
So
well,
Lansing,
4.
Lansing and Basel, though, are the locations that's being
But I
discussed.
want to know what the cost, total cost.
I do too.
We already have Ken on record. It can't be more than 8 or 10, whatever we decide, so.
And he didn't say dollars, $100?
I will give you a new proposal.
Okay.
Based on what, the specifics of what we're doing, so.
And I would say in that proposal, if you can include or work with staff, if there is anything that we might be able to move around or get creative, if there's something that's less critical than hearing from our residents, then we might look at that.
Okay.
And my only thing I would add is I would think that Linwood would be a good location as opposed to.
Well, I mean, I think to Jeff's point, though, if we had sessions that were 4 or 5 miles away, that's pretty close.
That's pretty close, and it's,
Yeah, I mean, when he said Easton, he didn't mean in the city of Easton, it was Pleasant
Pleasant
Ridge.
Ridge
It was
is far
3
a
miles.
drive from
Yeah, it's-
Basel. I mean,
Yeah.
Glenwood-
You know, sometimes
It
you
could
have
be
to-
one way or the other.
You know,
I mean, it's
sometimes-
just, I'm just saying what my preference would be, so.
In the community center,
So-
Linwood's a good spot.
And it would be open to a meeting. I'm sure they wouldn't charge anything.
I'm not sure that it's actually open for use just yet. I know, I was talking to the Council on Aging Director, and she said that some of the bathrooms were still under construction, so before we
Oh, I
would
thought-
commit
Yeah, we
to
better
that,
check
I'd
it
want to
out.
make
But they
sure.
have
that
had
it's-
some meetings there, I know that.
Yeah. So I think it's phased construction. I would just want to make sure that we weren't waiting to get in there because of the construction.
Where would you
going
want to
on.
have it then, in Linwood? If you had it in.
Well, if it wasn't at the, you mean if it wasn't at the community center?
Well, yeah.
It'd be a fire station too.
Fire station.
I just want to make sure that we don't get to the end of this,
And then have more meetings?
no, and then have the board not satisfied that we've hit the targets that they were expecting. That's why,
Right.
if we want 2 more days of meetings, we need to let them know now so that they can get that done.
right, and we also need to figure out a way, how are we going to generate the number of people that would make that
Advertise.
valuable information to make a statistical difference in any of their analysis. I mean, if we only have a handful of people yet show up again, or the same people who showed up at the other ones
Right.
showing up again to express their opinions again, you know, I think that we need to target or look at how do we get new people to participate as opposed, because we could get 50 more people if the same 50 people came, you've really not gained anything.
I think we'll get 2 or 3x the turnout, but to your point, we can't stop those that just continually want to go to meetings no matter what.
Right,
So-
right, exactly. No, and
It's
I
crazy,
understand
some
we
people don't
can't,
have jobs.
But we can't, right.
Yeah.
But you know, if we get 2 or 3 new people,
Right.
is that really going to change the analysis of?
Well, I'd expect a couple hundred more. That
Well,
would
that,
be-
I said, but how are we going to generate that level of interest? That's my, you know, we need to.
Well, there's a
get-
great monument sign on 4th Street in Middle Lansing that I think would be a good start.
Right,
So-
I'm saying, let's get people.
Every
there.
other event in Lansing shows up on that board. I think I can get this one on there.
Yeah, I said, let's just get people there. That's-
So, and I'm
that's the
hoping
sign.
that we can keep the number down as low as possible because I don't think it's worth the 8 to 10,000 to get 50 people to come to a meeting. So I think the devil's in the details on when you bring us the details.
All
But we
relative,
need to
though.
make
I
kind
mean,
of a
I don't
decision.
disagree with you, 10,000 is not insignificant, neither is 300,
Oh, that's true.
where we started,
Right.
so.
Well,
we come
and I
up
think
with-
that's something to be cognizant of, is that there's very realistically, I mean, we've held the first meetings, we had 7 to 8 people per meeting. So if you have another round of meetings, you can expect another 7 to 8 people per meeting. If you have 10 to 20 meetings, you're looking at 80 to 160 people, and you're gonna spend $20,000 to $30,000 more than likely if you have those 3 sites or 2 sites. With multiple meetings, it's gonna get up there. So is that what the board, do you believe that's a good
Ken's going to
return?
sharpen his pencil, and we already have the facilities for free, Mark, no problem.
Okay,
Well-
I wanna make sure
Spend the
that,
money for,
But this is, I'm just
And
saying,
I would be-
we're sitting here today
I
at
think that's a
August.
good question.
Today, we're sitting here and it's August the, what, 14th?
14th.
It's August the 14th. We don't meet again in a formal meeting until the 28th. I mean, the 21st.
So wait,
So
we're on Thursday.
then, it's logistically, if we don't make a decision today or somehow try to authorize either, if he comes back and has a maximum amount of money that we agree we're willing to spend, and to find out what we can get for that, and if we can get what we want for that, then authorize David or whatever to move forward with this, or authorize Doug to sign the amendment to the agreement that we have, the contract, because any delay is not going to allow to get the preparation, the staff, his people scheduled to make sure
Right.
I'm saying,
'Cause
we're
he's
kind of
got it.
asking a lot.
He's got the
It's just
charrette schedule.
Right,
Well, and we also have to advertise to get people to go to
Right.
these
Sure.
meetings
Right.
and not confuse that.
I realize the complexity, there's a lot of smart people in this room, let's not jeopardize the feedback of our residents for our entire
agree,
future
and-
over a 30-day time period.
I agree. I'm just saying, what I think though is that what is the maximum amount that we feel is appropriate to spend on increasing
I think
the
that would be
participation?
the right approach, would be
That's
maybe
my
today get
approach.
an amount not to exceed, and then we can take care of the details and get it moving forward if the board's okay with that.
Right, that was just what I'm saying, is go ahead and give the authorization in an amount not to exceed. So what do we feel is a reasonable amount that we would be willing to invest in increasing workshop participation?
Does anybody have a number?
10,000? I'm just putting it out there.
I don't know if staff has any thoughts, somehow we were able to assign a $288,000 number, so.
That was because we had a proposal in advance from,
Understood, and all I'm saying is it was a misstep on our part to not realize
I
this wasn't
agree.
covered in the scope to begin with. so.
I agree.
Well,
But
it was
hindsight,
covered to a level that at the time was agreed to that was sufficient. Certainly, as the commission decides, well, we need more, we can certainly add to that. To your point, if you set a level, a ceiling, and we come back and say, well, it's over that, then we dig into our scope and we say, well, then we're going to have to, cut here out of the scope to be able to do this and to reach your desired number. So.
I was just, you said throw out a number, I just threw out a number. Anybody can change that.
I'd like
I
him
don't know what
to
say.
stay within his number of 288,000 and see what you can come up with.
That's not reasonable and it can't happen. We can't cut out the charrette, we can't cut out the,
Well, I didn't say, I just want to see what you come up with and see, you say, well, I absolutely can't stay within this is but if I went to this level, I'd like to see your proposal.
but Mike, we don't have time, as far as getting the workshops done. Other
I just
things-
don't like to spend $10,000 when we don't know what we're doing.
For an extra, at the
50
best
people.
case scenario, 50 people.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's fair, but I think you can expect a very different turnout, just.
That'd be worst case scenario.
I tend to agree with Commissioner Schimke that if done,
Just a change order. As a contractor, we approve the change order.
I just don't know how much.
Yeah.
To, put a maximum
You
on
threw
capital.
10 out, I'll throw 5 out. Anybody else got another number? Again, it's based on their staff time, so we can't really tell you the exact number.
Well, we were just trying to get a number that we could authorize staff to approve, not to exceed.
And I think that Commissioner
But then the
Shimke-
challenge becomes if you put
Right.
together a plan and now all of a sudden, instead of the 10 meetings, we're going to get 5 meetings and they're offered at not the most convenient of times, it's like, well, then we're throwing money away.
Right.
So,
And I think that one of the things that Commissioner Shimke brought up, so then I'm going to have to tend to agree with him, is that truly the least representative thing of the survey came within the central part of the county, not the southern, not the northern. It was more central Leavenworth County for the workshops. And that includes High Prairie, Alexandria, and Delaware townships. So, I think that we should set as a priority, because what began this conversation was not putting additional workshop sites to the north or the south. It was to try to figure out a way of increasing participation of people within the center part of the county, and that we should prioritize in any additional workshops that we might agree to pay for to be in the central part of the county, and essentially maybe the Lansing Community Center, because it is a meeting place. And maybe the staff could look to see if there's anything in a different location that's more out in the, But that's just my, if we're going, as we're increasing expenditure, then, we already expensed it in having north and south.
So one of the things I would ask you to get you a more accurate number, Commissioner Shimke, you mentioned if it's happening at convenient times. If you have times that you would like for these to be scheduled, then please give us that information so that we can roll that into
No, I
whatever it is
think what
we're
you've done in the
doing.
past has worked. What I'm saying is, if we don't give you sufficient funds, then there's going to be less sessions, and therefore, we're not going to get the same result.
Well, we can evaluate
So
how.
my counter to this would maybe be, okay, so with that proposal, if we're able to do a sufficient number of meetings, I would say prioritizing between Lansing and Basehor, you could probably do one or the other. I think probably population-wise, you're going to get more attendance in Lansing. But accessibility-wise, it's not very far from the Basehor community to get to the Lansing Community Center if they choose to participate. So if by budget, we're only able to do one rather than two, I would make the recommendation, maybe we just do one larger meeting, number of sessions in Lansing.
They did start with Basehor.
Right, so they have been included.
They have been included. And it was a pretty well-attended meeting.
Yeah, that first meeting was well attended.
Yes, sir. And it wasn't at a convenient time.
Right.
So maybe if we were going to do the same workshop in Lansing, a 2-day event like we did in, the northern and southern part of the county, find out what that number is, what maybe can we exclude from the initial scope that could cover it, or that would be an incremental spend above, not to exceed, if we said 5 or 10,000 or whatever it is.
That's just my way of compromise, of saying,
Sure.
well, let's bring down the expense, let's look at,
I have a question. So, you guys do these comp plans for a lot of other entities. Is this a typical number of response that you see in other comp plans that you guys have done? And if not, or if so, was there any different type or way of advertising that you used in the other situations?
It varies. Every community communicates with itself differetly. If the community has a very robust sort of network and online notification and et cetera, then obviously there are easier networks to get sort of all these communications out. If you don't have that, then you have to spend a lot more money and time and buys and making that network and that connectivity. So I would tell you, a lot of communities would be very happy with survey results that had 1,500 on just the survey side of things. Having focus groups that have the numbers that we have, I would say be right in the middle. And every one of those communities would like to have more, there's no doubt. But they all have budgets too, and they feel like they can do as much as they can do. They all know that as we go through the adoption process, and the study session process. There'll be a lot more bites at the apple for people to react to specific recommendations and ideas through that process as well. And so again, engagement is a spectrum of a whole bunch of things to put everything together. And the focus groups is typically just one component of that. So everybody would like to have more participation on that side. Most of them accept what they got, and they move to the other events.
So I guess my point is, from your experience with doing other comp plans for other entities,
This
are
is
you
very
satisfied this is about average for response so far?
Yes, I think it's great on the survey side. I think it's terrific. I thought it was terrific on the visioning side of things. I would have liked to have had more responses, just like you guys on the focus group side. I think there's a function of cost and network there. But I am okay with where we're at in the workshops because, with the focus groups, because again, we're looking forward to all the other things that we have scheduled to engage people on. So I don't know, in being responsible in the way to spend your resources, whether that additional meeting is going to provide the value that you're hoping to get. It's certainly, if all we're doing is.
Well, I think to your point, Ken, the dollars we've spent per respondent now has not been very good. I think
I
we
agree.
can make it way better, but what's done is done, so.
And that's where I was just wanting to know where we scored and,
Right.
what they expect.
I'm
You know, I
going to
mean,
guess
we-
54 versus our population, as Mr. Smith shared. I wouldn't call that success, especially not for the expense, so.
But I just don't know if you're going to get more of the same results, I think, unless you come up with some great new avenue of advertising.
Again,
Well, yeah, I mean, all you can do is figure from a population and density perspective, we've got 10 times the opportunity. If we yield, I'm happy to fall on that sword if we yield a similar result.
Again, these focus groups, we didn't want more than 15 people to attend because it's a small group and it was more personal conversations that was going on.
Very discussion-based. You get much above 20 people or so, and the discussion
You're
gets
only targeting-
watered.
So they were
20
designed
people.
for like 15 people max, so we
Right,
can
we
sit
were
around the
having 7 or
table.
8. Mostly of which were the same people at the time.
That was the average.
I know, I'm being critical, but.
A couple of the groups, like the UGMA groups in the south, I think there was close to 20 people at that meeting because that was a really big, important topic to people in the south part of the county. In the north part of the county, we had 3 people show up to that meeting because it wasn't a very important topic to some people in the north part of the county. And agriculture was very well represented in the north part of the county and a little less represented in the south part of the county. So while it did average out to, 8 or so people per meeting, there were meetings that were very well attended depending upon the topic and where it was located and the importance to that part of the community.
I would also add, if we had all our eggs in that one basket of the focus groups, and that's the only input we were getting, then I agree with you. It didn't work. But we're not.
I realize you have to view it against the total body of work. and it's a
But
big
people
project.
have, and what Crystal has indicated is people have choice. They're going to attend what they find interesting. And so if it's of value to them, they're going to attend. And so I think the agriculture one is a great example, or the growth ones are great examples of, if it's a hot button issue, people attend. If it's something more abstract or something they just don't have interest in, they just don't attend because they have so many other things to do. So.
And I don't disagree, but there's some logistical challenges to where some of these meetings we're at relative to where people may work, for example.
I certainly understand your.
And again,
Your
there's a
comments.
much larger workforce than not, and the workforce you want to hear from, rather than just those that either
I agree.
have the unique flexibility in their job to be there versus those that maybe don't currently work. I still want,
Then I
all
think-
voices matter, but come on.
Well, and that's why we had them at noon and 4 and 7,
Sure.
right?
And
So
I think
we
that's
had a
great. That makes
spectrum of
sense.
times for them to show.
And we've seen that on the original, the beginning at base, or people coming in after they got off work.
Right.
And I don't think it's so much a logistics issue of when we had the meetings, where we had the meetings, what time we had the meetings, as much as it is an understanding issue. This comp plan, I don't think people understand the importance of it. If we had people understanding the importance of this comp plan, the sand plant issue wouldn't be as big of an issue as it is, because they don't understand. This sets the stage for a lot of things, even the legal stage for what we do down the road for things like an industrial park. If people understood the importance of this,
Sure.
there'd be more people showing up. So I don't know how you change that. By throwing another $10,000 at it, I don't think you're going to change that.
Right. Well, even throwing $10,000 at marketing is probably not going to get.
That's what I mean, because it's the level of understanding. If they don't think it's important, they won't show up. And that's why I kind of wanted to know where we stood in the average of other comp plans that they've done. If they said this is terrible, then yeah, let's throw some more money at it. But if he says this is about average of what you see, then are you going to get more of the same, no matter how much you throw at it?
I tend to agree, but I also think that, in getting more people engaged, figuring out a way of getting people to take the survey. Take the survey. The survey is something that,
Free.
is very, you can take it 24/7. I mean, take the survey, get your, allow your voice to be heard, because, the focus groups, it's an entirely different thing, and it's whether or not people will take the time out of their schedules to attend the focus groups. That's why I said, is it an investment we want to make, and if so, how much? But we can't put off making
Right.
that decision, because
Needs to be made today.
it probably needs to be made today.
And I've just been sitting here thinking about this, and I just don't know if we can really justify that kind of money for the kind of return of response we're gonna get.
No, I'd rather see us work it in the existing plan, don't get me wrong, but I don't, I'd have to rely on staff to tell us what they think what scope could be eliminated to
bigger
make
truck.
room for another meeting. I don't know. Well, no, I'm saying, do you do a 2-day charrette? Heaven forbid, instead of a 3-day. Fuck, I don't know.
The surveys are free, right?
They are free.
They are free.
Unless you advertise them.
Surveys are free. Unless we advertise.
I think if we got an average result, we'd just be throwing more bad money at the same
No more good money.
outcome. Or more money at the
Do
same
we
outcome.
want to spend the money to put something in the Tonganoxie paper and the Leavenworth paper?
That's expensive.
I know it's expensive.
So then,
Just a reminder, I guess.
Advertising for the meetings or advertising to do the survey?
how much money was, I don't remember
Both.
what was in the advertising budget for the proposal, in the contract.
So the dollars and the ad buys and media stuff was just rolled into the overall engagement piece. I can reach out to Kristen and we can have a conversation about what's left in that budget, what additional buys is she going to do, what additional media stuff is she going to do in the roll-up to the charrette and the open house. I've just written down here on website surveys, open house, and getting it to your social media accounts in addition to, other advertising that she's doing. So I'll reach out to her today and have that conversation about what's upcoming in that vein to help us understand what's next in that.
We just
And we could do like,
rolled it
yes,
out.
column or letters to the editor.
That's why we got
pushed.
Inviting people rather than spend the money in the paper, share that with the people about the comprehensive plan.
A lot of people in your area take the Lawrence Journal over
That's
paper.
true. That's true, or no
I
paper at
just-
all.
My suggestion would be to drive them to the website, because the website has all of the information. It has the surveys, it it's where the project is living right now online and has all the data on it. It's also a way for us to track the number of hits and where they're coming from and use the analytics from the website for how people are using it and where they're using it from and you know,
Public
et
service
cetera.
announcement, go to the county's website to find the information about how to participate in the comprehensive plan for Leavenworth County.
You can go live on YouTube.
No, I don't think so.
You just did.
We have a link on the main website, right?
Yeah, there's a link on the main website, also the social media account, the county Facebook page. It's regularly being shared on there over and over and
Yes, it
over
is.
again. I know personally, as far as like the ads, every single time I log into Facebook, which is more often than I care to admit to you, I get a reminder to take the Leavenworth County survey. So I know that it's out there. I know that our social media coordinator is putting it out there over and over. We did just do a press release to the newspaper about 8 or 9 days ago. Leavenworth Times has been great about doing press releases for us. It's my understanding that they have not charged us for those kind of little press releases. I could be wrong about that, but so I know that it's out there again. It's on our main webpage. And again, there has been a recent push, which is why we went from about 800 or so respondents on the survey to close to 1,500 because of that last big media push, which was pretty recent in the last week or week and a half or so.
We might get a free link to that website from John's article on this meeting.
An analog link.
I would rather spend more money on advertising to go to the website. If you bombard them with advertising and you get 7 people to actually go take the survey, that's probably as many people as you're gonna get at the next $8,000 worth of meetings, so, new people. So,
Well, again, that proposal was multiple sites, multiple.
yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see both. I mean, a lot of the feedback was just that, again, the geography challenges where the meetings were for the population we have in the central part of the counties.
And the one thing that I can tell you is because I was trying to figure out how to share the survey, you know, when I was doing my online stuff. So one thing I can tell you is if you've already taken that survey, it will not let you take it a second time from the same, so you're not going to get multiple people going in and taking the survey. That's just because I was trying to figure, okay, how do I find the link so that I can copy the link to put the, you know.
You tried to take it twice?
No, that's not, I just know that it came up, no, it just came up, there was a message that came up when I opened it up to try to share
Yes,
the
if
link
you've
that I
taken it,
had,
you can only
you've already
take it
taken the
once, yes.
survey. I mean, and it wasn't, you know, I was just trying to figure out, how do I copy this link so that I can put it onto my Facebook page?
So it is front and center on the website. So the link that you should be copying and pasting is to the website
I figured that
itself.
out.
Yes.
No, I did figure that out
Yeah.
ultimately. No, I'm just saying, but it was just a convenient thing sitting there, and
Yeah.
and so I thought, okay,
And
I'm
what-
going to see if I can. and-
What's the website address? Could you say that?
Do you have it offhand?
LBcountyplan.com.
That's it.
lvcountyplan.com?
Yes.
Public service announcement.
So we just did it. Any other questions or concerns, Mr. Boone?
What, have we made any kind of a consensus? We're just not going to move forward? Let's just kind of,
Stay the course? Is that where everybody's at?
I mean, I kind of like the idea of trying to figure out a way of getting more info from the people in the more central part of the rural counties and stuff. But, I mean, it is what it is.
Commissioner Stevens, any thoughts?
I'm just for staying within the 288,000.
Okay. Mr. Schimke?
I mean, I'd love to see us figure out how to incorporate a few of those meetings in the central part of the county. I'd love to see us do it within the scope and the budget, as I believe that should have been completed the first time around, so.
I kind of agree with Commissioner Shea.
I do too. There was a county-wide comp plan.
Second.
What are we going to do?
What were you seconding?
Why don't I do this? Certainly to reflect your desire for another meeting, and certainly yours as well. Let me talk to Kristen and get a firm number on what it would take to have another event like the other ones we had scheduled in Lansing. So that the 5-topic meeting thing that reflects exactly what we did in the previous meetings. So I can get a hard number for that. To respect your comment about staying within the 288, I'll then look based on that number, how we might fit that in, and what that would mean to a modification scope, so that we don't go above the 288 level. And then you guys can evaluate pretty quickly the value of that versus the value of what we're losing ultimately in the work that needs to be done in the rest of the plan. So that way you can make a financial decision based on scope and what you might be losing versus the value of what you might be gaining. So I'd be more than happy to do that. I can get on that today, and assuming that she's available today, and we'll work through that as quickly as we can.
If we approve that on next meeting, would you have time to get it done by the end of the month?
Have the meeting by the end of the month?
Yeah. I mean, is that before the charrette, I guess it is?
Well, the charrette's in October, first
So you
week
would
of
have time.
October.
That was for the September one.
Well, the
Which is
survey's closing
survey,
in September.
right.
So we can crunch and analyze that data. We're going to struggle to get the word out for attendance for these meetings, schedule the meeting, have the meeting, and then have any meaningful sort of information to come out of that summary by the October date, simply because just time to do those things. But we will certainly try to do that. I think we can probably have it by the October date, but it may be just the raw information and what we got out of it. One of the things we do at the charrette is we show you all of the analytics of the survey and who responded and how they responded, and however you want to cut the different information, we do that stuff demographically and et cetera, based on the questions that we get. We won't have that level of analysis on any of that, any of the new meeting stuff if we do it. But we would need to know by, you said you have a meeting next week?
Yes,
Is that right?
First.
We would need to know that by your next meeting to be able to proceed with, get it done before the charrette. So.
It sounds like you can work with staff to come
Yeah,
up with those
we'll work
two
with staff.
options, put it in front of the board, and we
Yeah,
can.
we'll work with
vote on it next
staff,
week.
we'll try to figure out a solution that gets us where you guys would like to be, and then you can make the decision if you'd like to do it or not.
Okay.
Sounds good. And
Thank you.
then in the
Yeah, you
meantime,
bet.
you can start looking at just potential dates, possible dates to get it done to preserve the community center.
Yeah, I
Just as potential, I was talking.
I need to, one of the things that's important here is that period of advertising it.
Right.
And so I want to talk to Kristen about her, based on her other work that she's done in the county, what that means from a timing, how much time does she actually need to get that word out? I would also tell you that we're going to be making requests of you guys to put on your social media feeds both the survey link, the website link, and the open house link as well on October 2nd from 5 to 7, which is the general public open house for everybody to come attend. So we'll work with staff to help push that information to you so you can get that word out. You can increase the participation as much as possible.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Any more questions, Mr. Boone? Well, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate the update.
Great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Want me to do it?
If you don't mind.
I move that this board recess from open session and go into a closed executive session for a preliminary discussion on the acquisition of real property as justified by KSA 75-4319B6, and that the board resume open session in this meeting room at 12 p.m. 11 p.m. Is that enough time, do you think? I'm sorry, at 11 PM,
Mark, how much time do we need?
or AM, rather,
Is that enough time?
11 a.m.
at 11 AM. Is that enough time?
Yeah.
Okay, at 11 AM. Present in the executive session will be Commissioner Jeff Culbertson, Vicky KAAZ, Doug Smith, Chad SCHIMKE, Mike STIEBEN, and present will be the County Administrator, Mark LOUGHRY, and Senior County Counselor, David Van Paris.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the executive session? Seeing none, voting.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Let the record show that we returned to regular session at 11 o'clock. The executive session the discussion was limited on our property acquisition. No decisions were made. So we'll return to regular session. Okay. Last week, I don't think we got to go down the list of what all the commissioners were doing. Right?
Make the motion for,
Mr. Chairman, an appropriate motion at the conclusion of your executive session originating discussion would be to authorize the county administrator to proceed as discussed in executive session. No final action to be taken or concluded until done in open session.
Okay.
that would be my motion.
So moved.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 All right. Last week, I don't think we went down the list of what all the commissioners were up to, and last week, we kind of went right into the work session. Do you have any updates?
Went to the Port Authority meeting
Okay.
last week, and was it last week?
that's the week
My weeks
before.
are blending
Next week.
together.
That's
That's the
fine.
last.
We didn't
Yeah.
record last week.
And attended that, and I'm having a town hall next Tuesday at the fire station, Crider Road, Sherman Township Fire Station. Going to talk about I'm going to bring the budget and go through it with everybody and kind of share what the county budget's spending, what we spent last year, what we're spending this year, and talk about whatever issues is on people's minds.
Okay.
There were several meetings, but I don't have anything to report yet, so to be
Okay.
continued.
All right. Well, last week I attended the groundbreaking ceremony for the early childhood development building that's going in Basel for the Basel School District. Commissioner KAAZ and I went to LCDC meeting last week and attended Helen Swartz's funeral. I'll be going to Basel City Council tonight for their work session. And Saturday night, I'll be attending the Beef Improvement Dinner that's down at the KAAZ down in the Loughery area. That's an organization that provides scholarships for people, students who are livestock or agriculture related. They've given over $100,000 worth of scholarships in the last 10 years. It's a good organization. I'm sure they still have tickets left for the dinner, and it'll be a silent auction on some stuff. And remind everybody the school zones, school's back in session and school zone lights are flashing. You have anything?
Yeah, last night I attended the Leavenworth City Commission meeting, and one of the topics that came up lent itself to me requesting the potential for the commission to place a group on the agenda, next week's agenda, because it's not real heavy. There's a group of individuals who have concerns and questions about the closing of St. Luke's Cushing OB services. And now within Leavenworth County, there are no hospitals that deliver babies. And they had concerns and questions. And so I spoke with some of the representatives and told them that I would bring to you, placing them on the agenda rather than just showing up during the public comment, so that we can prepare even for the discussion and maybe have answers for some of their concerns and questions, as it is a county-wide issue. So with your permission, I would love to have the administrator and Becky update the agenda to add discussion regarding the closing of the OB services within Leavenworth County. there are any objections.
I don't have any objection. I'd rather see that than in public comment because it's, time limits are placed on that.
I just think that they were very well organized. It was not a mob type thing, but there were a lot of individuals at that meeting last night with that concern, and I think that it's something that that we need to consider has happened in the county and make sure that we are prepared for that having occurred.
Okay.
Because we're kind of responsible for public health. So,
Would that be something we'd want Mr. Miller at?
I spoke with Mr. Loughery this morning, and I think that he had already had contact with Mr. Miller, and I think that that's probably something he would be interested in being here for, because he's both over the health department
Right.
and EMS, and that was some of the concerns that they had were with those two.
Find out what our plan is, either we deliver in ambulances or
Right,
deliver out of our county.
exactly.
Okay.
Do we need to amend the agenda then?
Well, I think we didn't have that on, I'm just
As
saying
long
it
as it's
wasn't
not
on
on there.
next week's agenda, it was not on it, so I was asking to have it added.
Well, we'd already approved the
Oh.
agenda during our consent
Okay.
agenda.
Do we need to,
We can add it with the agenda when it goes out on Friday. If that's what the board would like.
Okay. Well, then if we can add, the LCRW lunch will be on Monday
Monday,
also,
yeah.
and I plan to attend that. And I don't know if other commissioners will be there, so we probably ought to put that on the agenda.
and then the other thing is that the city of Leavenworth will be making contact with staff for the county, or potentially individual commissioners to commissioners, I do not know for sure, to revisit the contract for waste disposal. Or lack thereof. I mean, the
Tipping fees at
tipping fees
the
at the
transfer
transfer station. So that's going to be coming back to us. I believe that Mayor Wilson was going to make contact with staff or an individual from the county, one of the other county commissioners. And so
Okay.
that, they were instructed to reopen that discussion. And so that will be coming or forthcoming.
Okay.
That's all I have right now.
All right. Mr. Culbertson?
I had the Easton City Council meeting. We talked about the budget. They're going to be able to lower their budget slightly, directly a result of the sales tax that we were able to get, that they were getting every year now. The FEMA lots, there's several FEMA buyout lots in the city that when FEMA bought a house out that's in a floodplain, it goes into FEMA, or it goes into the city or the county's name forever, and they can't ever sell the property. Well, there's several lots that are on they're contingent or adjacent to the city limits, but not in the city. So the city was thinking about annexing those and wondered if we could get those out of the county's name into the city's name so the county wouldn't be liable for them anymore. The guy I was working with at FEMA said, yeah, we could probably do that since we're not actually selling them. We're just putting them into another entity's name that, the city of Easton already has several of these lots. But then that guy retired, and so the new guy is still looking into it. But one of the lots, the city's particularly interested in because their city well is on that lot that the county actually owns because of the FEMA buyout.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at seeing if we could get that one at least transferred into their name. Also, what they were asking is on that lot, everybody's been using it for dumping, so there's some brush piles and stuff they're wanting to know if the county could get cleaned up. So I was going to talk to Mark and see if we can work on getting that cleaned up at least. And then with the FEMA guys, see if we can actually put it into the city's name.
Would it
Then-
be a continuation of annexation, or is it going to be a spot annexation?
No, it'd be contiguous.
Continuation,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's contiguous. And then, of course, the Millwood Bridge came up. They're particularly interested in my proposal to raise the Millwood approach and the bridge itself because their concern is KDOT won't raise Main Street Bridge so every time it floods. The bridge doesn't flood, but the approach
get
to it
to it.
does. And so Millwood is always the alternate route. Millwood will stay open a foot or two of flood stage higher than Main Street does.
Yeah.
So if, they were wondering if we could, at all possible, raise while we have the opportunity, raise the Millwood Bridge, because that is the alternate route for everybody on the other side of the creek to get to town. So they thought that was pretty important to bring up.
Okay.
That's about it.
I have one more thing.
Yes, sir.
On September 19th, Secretary of Commerce Tolman is coming to town, and in Tonganoxie, if you want to mark your calendars, there'll be a breakfast at the 1866. So I worked with
What
DJ
time?
to put that together, 9 a.m. And he'll also be touring all the
Not on the facility.
industrial parks, and he has a full calendar that day.
Hey, what day of the week is that?
Thursday, I believe. Is that what, anybody have a calendar? I think it's on Thursday.
And then I would just also encourage individuals throughout the county who may or may not have concerns with any of the issues that are going to come before the Board of County Commissioners, be it urban growth, land use, or anything like that, to take the opportunity to provide your information or your concerns or anything that you have to say in writing via the email system or letters, because it really is it's a really good opportunity for individuals to get their opinions and their voices heard in a way that is not constricted by time. You know, putting anything in writing is as much a part of the record as coming to any meeting before the Board of County Commissioners. Having it in writing is probably one of the best and most guaranteed ways you have of having an official record of what your opinion or your feelings are. So I would just encourage people to take advantage of that option.
So, Mark, I was going to ask you a question. We talked last week about linking, having each commissioner have a linked page on the county's website. Do you know what we have to do to proceed with that?
Currently, I think adding another page is not a problem for the commissioners. It's a matter of who's going to keep it up to date and if you all are going to be responsible for your own pages and whatnot. So that would be a discussion that you, as a board, need to make a decision, but I don't think it would be a problem for us to add additional pages.
I think that's just a good method of, since we've been talking about getting information out to people that.
Yeah, we have everybody's photo there. People will be able to click on that photo or the name under the photo, and it takes directly to the link to their.
District information, what's going on.
Anything else? Then we'll adjourn and head into a work session.